In today's video, we're going to make a hand crank tricycle, kind of recumbent style. And we're going to start off once again with the junk bike that someone else has thrown away. So I used the back part of this bicycle for another project. In all honesty, I'm not even sure what it is anymore. But I went ahead and removed the down tube, the tube that goes from the bottom of the steer tube to where the pedals are, the bottom bracket. And I cut this piece from another bicycle, and I'm going to form it in here for a gusset. So I've got my gusset welded on, and then also welded on. This is actually the seat tube, and I had that welded on at an angle, and went ahead and put the fork on, back on. So it's actually flipped upside down from the way that the bike was originally made, but that's going to give me the rate that I think I'm going to need here, and the geometry I think is working out pretty well. So, I mean, obviously, when it's complete, I may find out that that is too extreme of an angle, but I'm thinking that that I want it to be exceptionally stable, and I'll get that with that angle. So I'm working on the rear axle now. What I've done is I've taken this 1x1 steel bar. It's a pretty heavy gauge, and cut a notch out of it here. The reason being is that I want the wheels to have some camber, so that it's going to give the whole trike a lot of stability. So anyway, I'll get that joint welded up, and then we'll weld that to the rest of the existing frame. So the challenge now is to get this fixtured up so that when I weld this axle to the back end of the bike frame, that it is exactly equal. I don't want a bunch of camber on one wheel, none on the other. I want them to be as equal as I possibly can get it. So not quite sure exactly how to do that, but started off, this plate is reasonably flat, flat enough I think, and so I just have the bike kind of balanced there actually for now. I think once I get my tack weld on there I'll be fine, but I'm not quite sure exactly how to do this yet. So anyway, I think I'm pretty pleased with this fixture. This plate is pretty flat. This is just bed frame, but they're square. And I squared them up to the back tube here, and I used my calipers to make sure that they're exactly the same distance from the peak on the bottom side of the pipe here. So I have these tabs welded on. Went ahead and drilled and tapped a hole. Put the forks back on. Found a stem and handlebars that fit there, and just a front tire for now. This is going to be a drive tire when the project's done, but just to make sure that everything rolls properly and so forth. So time to mount the wheels, and I have this pair of wheelchair wheels, so I think that that'll work out very nicely. Let me go ahead and get those mounted. Here we go. This is the frame. Obviously need to make the chair and then the drive system, but that's the foundation of the project. Rolls really nice, so I managed to get the tires lined up well, so I'm pretty happy with it so far. So I wanted camber on these wheels to give the bike a lot of stability. The bike's for somebody that was in a recent accident and didn't have the use of his legs anymore. So, but as I was testing it, it seemed to me that the wheels are starting to flex a little bit, and I'm afraid that they may break. So that's exactly the opposite of what I was after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend my little tabs down a little bit, take some of the camber off, and to achieve that, I made this little gauge This is a 170-degree angle, so I'm going to take 10 degrees of camber off of these wheels. I heat it with an acetylene torch and then use the gauge to make the measurement as I'm doing that. So I've taken the camber from 20 degrees to 10 degrees, and I think it's good now. So I took apart an old stool that I don't use anymore. I made the footrests. I'll need to put a bed on those, to hold the feet, but they're about where I wanted them, so that came out pretty good. So since this is going to be a hand crank, and the hand cranks are also going to drive the handlebars, they'll serve as also handlebars to change the direction of travel. We need to mount the back wheel and the fork. The problem with that is that the back wheel is considerably wider than the front wheel. So I chopped these dropouts from another fork and chop these dropouts from another fork and a couple pieces of steel here that I can weld here so that that I can get that fork positioned as I need it. So I have my wheel tacked into place with my new dropouts here, and seems to be working pretty well. Sounds like I need to repack those bearings though. Something's ticking in there. So I now have my drive wheel mounted and the derailleur as well. For now, everything's just kind of tacked in just in case I need to move things around a bit. So here's the back and the seat from an office chair that someone was throwing out. The wheel portion fell off, and there's the mechanism I'm taking apart. So I need a rigid seat for the bike, and I found this office chair that I felt like would be a pretty good candidate. It's got good cushions and wide platforms and so forth. So I went through the trouble of removing this from the mechanism because I want something that's rigid. I don't want to be sliding forward and up and down and all these different functions. I want that seat to be really rigid on the bike. But as I kind of check things out here, I think what I'm going to do is just weld the seat instead of adding the bracket that it was originally mounted on. I'm just going to weld the back of the seat here directly to this bracket. I think it's going to give me a stronger seat without the extra weight and the extra problems and the extra hardware. So I have the back of the seat welded to the support for the bottom, and then also added the standoffs, getting ready to weld it to the frame. At this point, my concern is that the weight may be too far back. So I fixed the seat up so that there'd be enough room to kind of get feet on the foot pegs here. So, but if the center of mass is behind the rear axle, then the bike's going to want to tip back. So I guess we'll see how that works out. So I did weld the frame on here, and my concerns about the seat being too far back were well founded. Sitting on it would cause the front wheel to come right up. So I've moved the seat as far forward on the frame as I could. I suppose I could have angled these legs a little bit to move it forward more. But the plan is that I will move the back wheels back as required to get proper weight on the front wheel. Also, I couldn't move it too far forward because otherwise I'd be too cramped with the footrests and the handlebars. So we got the seat mounted. I do need to move the back wheels back just a little bit, I think. I'd like to have a little more weight on that front wheel. But other than that, I think that the geometry is working out nicely. So I moved the seat forward as far as I could without interfering with the bolt holes that I need for the seat bottom. But I still need to get the wheels a little bit further back from the center of gravity. So I went ahead and made these two tabs. I spot welded them together so that when I drilled these holes, when I drilled the hole and tapped it, that they would line up properly. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and weld that onto here, and hopefully that brings the center of gravity back far enough. So I got the cranks mounted here. This was the bottom bracket, actually from a different bike. Just welded a piece of tubing here onto the quill stem. So technically it works, but we're going to have to make some improvements here. With the way that the wheel is, it wants to flop over quite a bit. So I think I'm going to need a stop just to prevent it from turning quite so far. And with this chain being so long, it's kind of flopping around quite a bit too. So, but anyway, one step closer. So I found a piece of office furniture that had this wire shelving, and cut some pieces and form these foot boxes. So I'll go ahead and weld up the spots where the wires now meet. And those will get welded to the footrests. So the trike was coming along nicely until I realized that there was a serious problem with it. This is for a guy that can't use his legs, and it wasn't very accessible. Perfectly fine if you can stand up and step into it, but you won't be able to do that. So I chopped it in half. There's the other half of it, and I added this piece of bicycle frame. Got to change that geometry to make this work. So I have the extension welded onto this part of the bike. I'm going to see if I can kind of like tip the seat forward just a little bit, so the bottom bar there from the very back is level with the ground. And I'm going to need to take this pipe and bend it. I'm not exactly sure how much yet, but I guess the plan is I'm going to go ahead and make my cut and bend it a little bit, and then bend it some more, and then bend it some more until I think that I've got it the right amount. So I think that's about the angle that I'm going to need here, because that's what clears the tire. I kind of overshot it up there a little bit clearly, but I did save this piece, which I can weld in here and fill the gap up pretty nice. So I think it'll be okay. So that was a lot of extra welding, but now we have a bike that a person can sit down and just drag their foot across. A low step version, I suppose, of a tricycle. I got my foot rests welded back on, and turned out to be a little bit of a pain, but worked out. And I went ahead and also added a brake handle. So it's a standard handle, but I had to weld an extra piece of steel in here. It was made for a handlebar, obviously, and this piece of steel is quite a bit thicker than a handlebar. So, but it ended up working out, and I think that the position of it is pretty good. So if you're pedaling and you want to stop, it's easy to just get a lot of extra travel. Another thing I did here is because there's only a front brake and it's questionable how much force we'll be able to get on that brake handle. The brake pads actually are on the wider part of this tire, So the rubber against rubber should really stop this a lot easier. Obviously, if you're doing 20 miles an hour and stopping every, often, you probably really eat into the tire. But I don't think that we're looking for that kind of performance. I think we're looking for performance of light amount of pressure, lots of braking, and this seems to be doing that trick pretty well. Well, I believe that for the most part, this hand cycle is complete. I just finished adding in this gusset. Uh, the stresses there were a little bit too high before, so but this has stiffened up the frame adequately. And while there may be some things that still need to be taken care of, we need to get the chain waxed and sized properly, and there may be some geometry things to take care of. Uh, I think that it's basically complete. I hope he likes it. Thanks for watching my video. Have a great day.